I'm Geralyn. This is my work called O Tempo Não Para, which means time does not stop, from Bahia, Brazil. And I've been photographing in Brazil for almost 9 years at this point. Obviously not this year, hopefully next year. This work started out of a workshop with Ernesto Bazan. I was in a real photo rut in probably 2010, and I had studied with him early in the 2000s, and I reached out to him. I was just like, I need help, I need some inspiration, I don't know what it is. And he told me about this new place he had moved to and was photographing in Bahia. And he's like, Geralyn, the light, the people, the warmth, everything, you have to come. And so for my 40th birthday, I packed up and I went. And then I returned with him, I think 4 or 5 times, and I've gone on my own 2 times with another student from the workshops. We travel together now. That's good. So, O Tempo Não Para, this did not start as a project. These were photographs. I was just working through like what I was doing. And I think it was the 3rd year I went back in 2014. And I felt like every time I was flying back into Brazil, like nothing had changed, like time had stopped. But in truth, that was only because I was only seeing these little pockets of time. And then you realize, like, yes, somebody died, somebody had a new baby, and time does not stop. And so that comes from just returning to the same place over and over. And we can start with Adriani. This was in 2017, and this was the year the devil got into me. Like, I had not got sick at any time traveling to Brazil, and there was a big Umbanda ceremony about to happen. We were all invited to come be part of the ceremony and photograph. And I was really excited, but it was like we were out traveling the day before, and I just like feel the devil coming through my body, and I was like, oh my God. So I was not able to go to the ceremony. There was another person traveling with me. She also was quite sick. And then the next day, when I was feeling better, we had gone back to the Terreiro to like talk to them and recap like how the ceremony went down. And this little girl, Adriani, was so upset that I wasn't there, so she dragged me into her bedroom, and they had put the ceremonial skirts on, and she was spinning, 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 and laughing, and all the other kids were just cracking up. And so all of a sudden the aunt peeks her head in, and she's, what's going on in here? And they saw her with the skirts, and at first was a little upset, but then Adriani convinced her aunt to put on the skirt, and she was spinning and laughing too. And it just warms my heart even thinking about it now. It was such a great moment. And so it was just capturing her joy. So this one I call Still Life with Fruit. And this was we had just arrived in Bahia, I think 2015, and it was so hot, it was incredibly hot. And I was walking through the town with my friend Tammy, and we were hugging the walls in the shade, just trying not to be overheated. And this little girl comes out, she's sweeping her grandfather's house out, and she saw us, and she was like, come in, come in. And so she invited us into her house. And after we talked to them for a while, and she was telling us all her stories of school, she went back to cleaning, and she just picked up the kitten and given it a little kiss and set it on the table. But I think she forgot she put the bird on the table. And the kitten's like, I'm gonna go get the bird, and the bird is shuffling across the cage, and I was just like, oh my God, photograph. So, oh yeah, that's that story. But it just always, it feels like a painting, and so hence the name Still Life with Fruit, because the life is still. This is Vilma with her bird Lourdes, and so this was one of the moments that, like in the workshop, there's often like 4 or 5 different photographers photographing all the same thing. And to me, it's not that I get frustrated, but I'm like, I don't want to photograph that. So I had turned around and gone into their house to see what was going on. And Vilma was just sitting there with her bird watching TV, just by herself in the quiet. It was so peaceful. So that's where this photo is from. And there's a funny story. So she always had a lot of birds. And I think a couple years after this photograph, we had gone back and there was no birds anywhere. And I was like, where's the birds? And Vilma just comes walking back. She was playing with her cousins. She's like, cat got him. I was just like, okay. But they had a new puppy, so that was fun. Okay, so we met Vilma and her family. We were traveling in the workshop, and we were heading to a small village for a cockfight. And when we got to the village, there was no cockfight. There was only one rooster walking through the little arena where this was supposed to happen. So we were hanging about, and then started to walk around and talk to people in the area, and there was these men shooting pool. And one of the men actually was Vilma's father and her uncle, and got to talk to them, and then this other woman, and they invited us to come back and return to the community to photograph. I mean, it's so hard not going this year. And there's a woman that moved up the block from them. Her name is Regina, and her brother is a minister or priest nearby, and they both help make sure the families are okay, bringing them food and clothing and anything that, like medical needs that and I was able to find her email that she had given me years ago and reach out, and her brother reached out to me. He's like, no, we've been in touch, they're actually fine. But it's so hard not being there this year. Like, I mean, I think I've seen her every year since the year we met her in 2014. And so it's just like, oh my God, it's like, this is the year. She's been 14, I think, at this point, or 13 or 14. And I'm just like, I want to see Vilma. I want to see the families. I mean, that's my highlight. Like, no matter where we go in Brazil, like for the last 2 years, we've been traveling to a little deeper into Brazil with my friend Romaine. And we always end back in Cachoeira with the families and the girls. And this last year they took us fishing. And so that was that's Tainara over there with her fishing pole. And they were just so excited to have us come visit and just be with them and just hang out. And I mean, we spent, I think, like an hour and a half with them fishing in this little fishing hole, just because they were so excited to show us. And it's just, I mean, they're family, you know, after all these years, you just want to see people, even if it's only once a year. So as I was saying, this Tainara with her fishing pole, they had just come back from fishing. I think her mother actually just come back from fishing this day. And I call it Tainara my warrior just because the way she's holding the pole, and she's always, they're so strong. I mean, especially Tainara, she's always been like one that making things happen and taking care of things. And they are sisters, Vilma and Tainara are sisters. And so this is Marina, and Marina is Vilma's mother and Tainara's aunt. But this was the last day of last year as we were leaving. We'd already said goodbye so many times, but it's always so hard knowing you're not going to see people again. And Marina comes running out of the house, she was dressed all up because she always likes to make sure she looks beautiful when we're there to photograph. And it was just so exciting, and like I just see it and it's just like I can still say goodbye. I mean, I just miss these moments, and she's so regal in that light. So this is BA, otherwise known as Maria Vieira. She is the first person you see when you drive into Igatu, which is about 7 hours from Salvador up a really long, bumpy road. It's horrible, but wonderful too. When you drive into the village, she sits in front of her house and greets everybody and waves. Everybody knows BA. So this year, which was 2015, when we drove into town, she wasn't there. She wasn't sitting in front of the house, and the lights were off in the house. So as soon as we got to the hotel, I went over to her house. I was like, what's going on? Why is she not there? Like, maybe she was just out. And I peeked in, and everything in the house was covered in fabric and shrouded, and my heart just sank. I'm like, oh no, like time does not stop, right? Like this is the truth of not seeing people all the time. And I was like, hello, hello. And all of a sudden the back door opened, and she's a tiny little woman, and she's like, hello. And like she came out, and I was just like, oh, we gave each other the biggest hug. And she was explaining to me that everything was covered like this because they were fixing the roof of her house. There was a leak, and so she was trying to keep the dust and the water off of everything. So it's just all of her fabrics, all her clothes are just hung on everything. But yeah, she's so amazing. I love her. And she was pulling out her saints. She had these little saint cards she wanted to show me. I think she shows them to me every single time we're there. Yeah. So this wall, I call it the rituals and religions. And often when we're going to these communities, there's a focus for why we're going to be there, whether it's ceremony, either the Umbanda or Carnival, or a Catholic ceremony with the penitents. And that's our focus for going there. But most of my images come from what else is happening, like the downtime. So these are often the reason we are there. And they're super important, and there's all these, stories, and the different religions overlap. And I have always tried to figure out whether they fit with this group, like with the whole body of work, or if it's a separate project. And so I like being able to present them together, but this is it feels more like this body of work, which is maybe not on Tempo Não Para. I don't know, I'm still figuring that part out. And I decided to frame them in all these older frames, as a group, because it reminds me of, inside of everyone's home, there's an altar, whether it's a Catholic altar or Umbanda or Candomblé. In the corner, they have these old frames with the orishas and their gods, and I was trying to reflect that and just putting it all together. I mean, it's also like this diverse religions. All these religions are the same, but they're not, because we all have our different ideas on religion. So this one, so this last year when we went to a very small village called Saquinho, and I had met a photographer on Instagram named João Machado, and he invited us to meet him in this village. It was about a 12 to 14 hour drive from Salvador. It was really far, and we had to take a boat and run, to get there. It was incredible. But so these are all from this and this as well. And it happened at midnight on Good Friday. And the women, do I have that photo in here in the community? Maybe not. The women in the community come together and they walk and they do the Stations of the Cross coming back from the cemetery. And the men at midnight start doing the self-flagellation. And they do that all the way until they get back to the village. And the older men, so like in this, he's hitting himself, and the older men from the community actually like pat the blood off of their back, because their clothing has to be red before they can go back to the village. And it's a whole process, but it's so dark. And I mean, the fact that I was able to get this image, because it happens on a full moon, but it was overcast and cloudy, so we didn't have the light, and you're just like holding still and hoping and hoping and hoping you get a photograph. And these two women are the guides that walk with the men while they're doing the penitence. Is there any other ones that you were? This is also this is also through Lent, and these are the women, they're like soul feeders. It doesn't really translate very well, but they go out during Lent like 2 or 3 times a week and sing songs of mourning for those that have passed. And they dress in white, and it's always late at night. And they have like a clacker that symbols before they sing. It's really beautiful because it's all these quiet villages and these little sounds that are coming. And so this is in Santiago de Aguape. For Carnival, the week coming up to Carnival, the kids dress in these sheets and masks and rubber boots, and they run through town like scaring and haunting away people. And the rubber boots are actually like to kick the ugly out. But it always amazes me because it kind of looks like the Virgin Mary, standing there. So this is the fika, and this is actually mine that I sent along with everything because I wanted everything to arrive safely. In Cachoeira, there is a sculptor named, I'm gonna forget his name right now, and every year I go by a wooden sculpture that he, like, either some of the saints or he just does some very abstract little sculptures. But he always has all these hands hanging because they give them to kids when they're born, and they give them to each other for good luck and protection. And my idea for this exhibit, I was supposed to be in Brazil in April. Obviously that didn't happen. I was gonna buy a whole bunch of these to give to everybody that came to the exhibit. And I actually tried to reach out to him, like, to figure out, like, could he ship them to me? But it just wasn't gonna happen without being there. So this is my image of what it looks like in there with my pen, like a lecture. So I never really thought about being a photographer. I think I always took photographs. So, like in vacations, in high school I was on yearbook and with journalism classes. And I took a few classes in college, but really never focused on photography until I moved to New York. And at that point, I was just like, oh my God, look at this amazing place. And I started photographing everything. And I was like, okay, this is more than just taking pictures. This is like an art form. And then, so a lot of, like, I was always shooting black and white. It was Tri-X, and then digital came out. And I was like, oh, you're shooting with digital, and everything was in color. And I was like, wait, this is different, and like I'm thinking back to your question, like who influenced me as a photographer, and it really wasn't photographers, it was more of all the art history classes that I'd taken. And you think of like Vermeer and Wyeth and Hopper and those colors and the really quiet moments. I think those influenced me more than actual photographers. Although, I mean, like Gordon Parks and Bernie Sabat and Maggie Stever and her secret garden. I'm so like, I love, like if you look at the modern now, I'm like her way of thinking is just really inspiring. So, here we are, and right now the gallery's empty, but everybody's gonna show up soon. You'll be here on Saturday for sure. I wish everybody could be here. I'm thankful that I could be here and I can show you all this work, and hopefully we can be in touch and keep the conversation open. Thank you.
Thank you, Geralyn.